Good morning, everybody. Happy Tuesday. Got some updates from the head honcho himself, Pete Carroll. A few things in this video, a couple of injury updates from Sunday's game. It's not just our pride that is wounded coming out of a game like that, it's also a couple of these players. And I also want to talk about some comments that Pete made after the game was over, and comments that he made probably to address the fact that this offense hasn't scored a point in 6 quarters, and that's not something that is going to make fans feel confident for the future. Like you can be bad, you can lose games. I think we all understand that that's part of this process, part of what this team is going through right now. But if your team genuinely just can't score any points on offense like this, then even Russ over in Denver, who doesn't look good at all, even that's going to start looking pretty good by comparison. At least he's scoring some points. At least he can get his team across the 50-yard line a few times a game. So I want to talk about some stuff he said yesterday. Leading off with the injury stuff, Damian Lewis, according to Carroll, is pretty sore and has a significant thigh bruise. So as of right now, I would say Damian Lewis is going to miss some time. I don't know if we can say that he was not ready to come back, given that he was coming off the ankle sprain, I think it was. I can't remember if it was a sprain or what they ended up labeling it. I think it was a sprain. But obviously, this injury seems somewhat unconnected, so maybe it's just bad luck. I will say Damian Lewis seemed like he was playing pretty good before he went out, so he's still a capable player, so hopefully he gets back soon, but I expect him to miss at least one game at this point. So, what we're going to do at left guard, you figure it's going to be Phil Haynes again because he was the guy who came in for Damian Lewis in the middle of that game. Anyway, the problem is, the tragedy is that Gabe Jackson is now going to get forced to play pretty much because Gabe Jackson played terrible against the Niners. He was the guy on the offensive line who was clearly not holding up. He was the guy who you could pinpoint as saying this guy was the biggest problem on the offense. And it was an offense that had problems, but Gabe Jackson in particular was just terrible. So I don't know if you would have considered benching him after a game like that, but now the option is kind of taken away from you because Damian Lewis is going to miss some time. So you're probably looking at Phil Haynes at left and Gabe Jackson at right going forward. Now, I do believe that players are entitled to have bad games every now and then, and Gabe Jackson is a veteran. He's had a good career, and I know he can play better than that. My thing is that Gabe Jackson is very unlikely to be here next year because of his contract. If you look at his contract, I think he's got 9 million cap hit next year and only 3 million dead if you let him go. The odds of Gabe Jackson being here in 2023 are small. So if there's an opportunity to play somebody who has a chance to be part of your future going beyond this year, I would take it. And with Damian Lewis presumably out a little bit, you've really only got Jake Curhan, who's a tackle. He's been playing guard some, and he's actually looked pretty good at it, unlike last year when he didn't look good at it at all. But I think that if you take a look at the way he played in preseason, it seems like something has clicked a little bit for him. And I think that if you can put Curhan in instead of Gabe Jackson, that's probably more beneficial to the team. But I think that's relatively unlikely to happen unless Gabe continues to play this poorly. So it's going to take time for that to happen, and it's also going to require one of our starting players to play really badly. So it's not necessarily something you want. It's not necessarily something you really want to root for. But Gabe Jackson doesn't really have much of a future here, and Jake Curhan may. So if the opportunity arises to swap him out, if Gabe Jackson continues to PFF, by the way, gave him a 13 grade for his pass blocking out of 100, which tells you how bad he was. Hopefully, you just don't need an injury to get him out, right? You can actually take him out because of bad performance that is inhibiting the team. Sometimes that's something this team struggles with, like last year, great example, Kyle Fuller. Kyle Fuller was playing terrible at guard for a couple games, and he continued to go out there until he got hurt. And then once he got hurt and we put in Jake Curhan and he looked better, then we realized, oh, okay, we can't put Fuller in there anymore. And it wasn't even like Jake Curhan taking that role permanently. He moved to tackle, and then we ended up putting in guys like Phil Haynes. But regardless, Kyle didn't lose his job until he got hurt. Hopefully, that's not what happens here with Gabe if he keeps this up. Shelby Harris was the other injury. Also doesn't sound great there. Carroll said that he's no better yesterday, than he was the day before, the day he got hurt. He played 3 plays against the Niners and then went out with a glute injury. Really does seem like we tried to rush him back a little bit. So probably should never have tried to play. And now he's paying for it potentially. And Shelby Harris is probably our best defensive lineman other than maybe Al Woods. And Shelby Harris plays more than Al Woods most of the time. So big loss. I do expect him to miss a game, although it's possible he plays against the Falcons. I will say that this means that we get to see some Miles Adams, and some people are going to be really excited about that because Miles Adams was a bit of a fan favorite in the preseason. He made some plays, and it's very possible that he can translate that into the regular season and become a part of this defensive line rotation. But it comes at the expense for the moment of Shelby Harris's health. And that's a big loss because our defensive line is having enough problems as is. He's somebody who can collapse the pocket. He can take up attention from offensive linemen. He can make plays in the backfield. He gives you a lot of stuff, and it's a significant loss. All right, so that's the injury updates coming out of that game. I want to talk next about some comments that Pete Carroll made after that game. And these are comments that you make when your team goes 6 straight quarters without scoring a point on offense, right? Clearly something's very, very wrong. The NFL has changed rules after rules after rules in recent years to try to make it easier for offenses to move the ball and score. And we have literally not scored a point on offense in 6 quarters. It's so bad. Some Seahawks fans are still pining after Russell Wilson, who isn't even playing good in Denver through 2 games. He's averaging 16 points a game. He put up 16 points on a pretty bad Texans team at home on Sunday, and yet I have Seahawks fans in my comments lamenting not having Wilson because that 16 points looks pretty sweet right now compared to the offensive goose egg of Sunday. So you take a look at what we're doing on offense, and obviously there's something fundamentally wrong here. You can't go 6 quarters in the modern NFL without scoring. And it's not like there are missed field goals. It's not like there are a bunch of fluky plays that happen inside the 10-yard line. You're just not really even getting down there. Over the last 6 quarters, we've had, 2 or 3 possessions probably end in even get to the red zone or even get into opposing territory. It's pretty bad. So Carroll had this to say about the issue, and he addressed specifically the lack of throwing the ball downfield. We are through 2 games now, and we are barely throwing the ball downfield at all. And while that's understandable with this new quarterback and this offensive scheme, you need to do it some. Basically, Carroll said they didn't plan to throw the ball downfield a lot because they were concerned about their protection issues against a really good 49ers front line. Well, that makes sense, right? And that's probably something that also affected the game plan against Denver, where you didn't see much stuff down the field because we were playing Bradley Chubb and Randy Gregory with rookie offensive tackles. But here's the important part. Carroll said that with the rookie tackles playing well, and by the way, I'll talk more about this later, but Charles Cross actually played a really nice game against the Niners despite our lack of production on offense. And Abe Lucas is also playing fairly well. He said it's now time to open things up and not hold Geno Smith back. So basically what he's saying is that going forward, we're going to take more downfield shots. We're going to go deep. We're going to try to get Metcalf deep. We're going to try to get Lockett deep. We're going to try to get Eskridge deep or whoever. We're going to use Goodwin's downfield speed because he's a track star basically. And you're not going to see an offense that is throwing everything within 10 yards of the line of scrimmage anymore. You're going to see a concerted effort to make big plays. And it's good news, obviously, and maybe it is indicative of why the offense has had such a hard time in the last game and a half. Not being able to attack downfield kills you. It's like having a point guard that can't shoot. Okay? It completely changes the way defenses play against you. If opposing defenses right now don't have to be worried about the Seahawks hitting big plays over the top, you know, those plays that are going to force your safeties back, it's harder to run the ball. It's harder to throw short. It's harder to throw medium. It's hard to do everything. But if you can get the opposing defense to respect your ability to throw the ball deep a couple times, that's going to make everything else work better. So now it has been said, the question is, will it be done? So this Sunday against the Falcons, a defense that is probably not going to be great, a defense that you don't look at and go, oh, they're going to give us a ton of problems, we should be seeing some longer developing plays deep down the field for the Seahawks. We should see Geno willing to go deep. We should see the safeties backing off if we can hit a play or two like that. And that's going to be the fun thing to look out for. Are we actually going to do it? Are we going to actually follow through on these words? And is it going to make everything else better? Because Geno has the arm. Geno does not have a noodle. Geno can go deep down the field. So if we see it a few times against Atlanta and it pays dividends, then maybe it was just an issue of not totally trusting your rookie tackles, which that's understandable. But at this point, with things being as bad as they were in that game, you gotta go with it and hope it works out. All right, I'm going to get out of here. Those are your updates. Those are the things that have my attention right now. See you guys later. Go Hawks, and let me know what you think.